Whoever has the best record that chooses not to split, so splitters, not going to put them on the stream for the final round. And we will try and show you a competitive match if we have one. Thanks for sticking around. Support us if you can. Support Guardian Games. They're a fantastic host to us. They're great. We love that we can have this event every Monday here in Portland, Oregon. We'll be back in a moment if we can find a backup match. All right, welcome back to the conclusion of round number 3 here at Guardian Games. We're Portland Paper. We're in Portland, Oregon. We've got Amulet Titan versus Izzet Breach, and a strong start for Chad on Amulet Titan. And you know, it's not too often that you get a three for three on round 3 here. 3 matches for round 3. Yeah, this is great. Ooh, that is a very good draw for Chad, although the engineered explosives is going to put the kibosh a little bit on Chad's plans. I think you have to think really hard if you were going to play this bounce land early. I don't love this from Chad's side, playing the bounce land this early. You can get into some really great shenanigans if you keep your bounce land in hand, and usually, if, from my perspective on Amulet, it feels like you're oftentimes playing it early only if you have no other lands to put into play. But Chad's sitting on a cavern, and I believe also another land available to play. T-West.
Oh, wow. We have at least 2 Summoners packs, a T-West, a Prime Time. So had the pieces for a pretty
I'd like to
early-
see
yeah.
the T-West played here unless we plan on Summoners pacting, but I think that would be insane to pact, so I think that's a good choice. The cool thing about Michael Lee's deck is if it's kind of the stock version of Breach, it's a little bit scary for Chad because this Breach deck can go off pretty quickly. You need essentially 5 mana available to go off if you do not have a grinding station or a legendary creature in play. If you have a legendary creature, then you can it's 4 mana to go off. And if you have the grinding station but no legendary, it's 3. So needless to say, Chad is safe from Mike going off this next turn, but could be threatened the following turn. Yeah, I love breach decks.
I mean, you play Breach decks and Titan decks, so
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
watching
yeah.
the Ian
Yeah,
matchup
it's true.
here.
They're both great.
I'm just gonna be kind of quiet, and
Yeah.
then I'll.
So interestingly, we did not see Mike crack the baubles, which would make you anticipate that Mike is either really hoping to get on the beatdown plan with constructs, or this is looking to cast an Emery for cheap. This deck does one of the best jobs in Modern of turning on Delirium, because it's playing Saga, which is a really great way to turn on Delirium, and it's playing Emery in a bunch, and the velocity of the deck is really quick.
Another cavern on top for Chad, so not gonna have 6 mana. So Mike, I mean, we've got a breach in the yard for Michael.
You're feeling really safe, at least initially, on Mike's side, because Mike's sitting on the Unholy Heat in hand.
Heat plus, you're gonna have a construct token. We're doing some damage, and then who knows? We got Emery. I mean, there's like all the pieces kind of. Saga's gonna pop off here.
You have a bunch of pieces. We haven't seen the grinding station. Emery honestly is like moderately powerful in this deck, but like the recursion engine of just bringing Bobble back to draw a card a turn is like pretty medium in a matchup like this. I do like getting the Ether Spell Bomb. I think the only way you lose is if somehow Chad goes like runner runner, gets Amulet into a bunch of Titans, and then just absolutely runs you over.
It feels like Mike's playing in a way where he knows that he has the answers
Yep.
to the cards that Chad can play, and so you're just gonna kind of be a beatdown deck at this point because
Yep.
you have kind of a lot of threats that are going to attack for a significant amount of damage. So that's a clock with you keeping up your control elements as well.
I think it would be very reasonable, to be honest.
We missed a Darcy trigger there on that bubble cast. Oh no,
There it
we
is.
caught it. We caught it. There
I
we
think
go.
it would be very reasonable for Michael to consider playing an engineered explosives on 1 here with the Emery, as that covers that angle that I was talking about, where if Chad somehow gets like a bunch of amulets into play, that's kind of the only way that Chad can potentially overload what Mike's doing and generate enough mana to just run Mike over. I think the extra cards that the bauble might give you just seem less important to me, and you could still hold up the Unholy Heat, but I guess Mike is favoring the ability to hold up both Unholy Heat and Ether Spell Bomb, which I think is also like a very reasonable line.
Okay, we got a hardcast endurance with Cavern, which this kind of plays in great to Mike having heat right now. Which I think you need to do it in response to the trigger once it resolves.
You do. This is still a little bit awkward. It does take Chad's ability to play anything next turn pretty much out of the question. So Mike knows that there's now like essentially 2 attacks that are going to be kind of free almost, unless like Chad draws something like an Arboreal Grazer.
This is, yeah. Mike's in such a commanding spot here because, you know, having to pay for that pact the next turn. I think that's pretty close to being dead. Because we get at least get a bauble for an extra card. That's gonna get recur that with Emery. So that's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's very lethal right now unless Chad can do something about one of the permanents Mike has on board.
Pretty much has to get a Grazer, I think, off the top to be able to, and it looks like did not draw a Grazer. I mean, the other option, a Boseiju would play here to knock off a large construct. But I mean, I agree. I think Chad is playing from like incredibly behind. I mean, hard to stress how far behind Chad is here. I don't actually know if there is a sequence of draws that would get Chad out of there, but I think as any Amulet Titan player would know, you don't Amulet Titan's one of those decks where I don't think you should scoop like a lot of the time because there are some wild the potential power in the Amulet Titan deck is so high that even if you can't conceptualize the draws that you might need to win a match, sometimes things come together in ways that are very, very surprising.
Oh wow. Just icing on the cake there. Another free artifact.
It does feel very good when you're playing the Breach deck and you're playing against something like Amulet Titan that's not interacting with you. You get to take all of the fun game actions,
I know.
and
Yeah, that is very
your
kind of polarized. Where
your
like,
deck is
yeah,
really humming.
like usually I feel like Titan does all the fun stuff. Where like I'm gonna get these lands, I'm gonna bounce this, I'm gonna do this. But yeah, it's like well, here's a little taste of your own medicine there. Yeah, having played a fair amount of both of these decks, do you consider Breach heavily favored?
Mm, not necessarily. It kind of depends. You can get really your kind of growth on Breach can get really destroyed by a Force of Vigor. So there are a lot of like big whammies. So sometimes with the Breach deck, you end up in situations where you get blown out by Endurance or Force of Vigor, or just a fast draw by the Amulet Titan player.
Yeah, so I've I try to read deck lists pretty regularly. I'm not the most on top of it, but I did actually today. I was going through like recent Amulet deck list because I feel like it's making a bit of a resurgence, and I think Boseiju has sort of pushed Force of Vigor out of sideboard slots. I see like Endurance and Boseiju, but I don't see a ton of Force of Vigor. But it looks like we have some there.
Yeah, so Chad's saying we left out Boseju's, Force of Vigor's. Yeah, interesting. I
My,
this seems like I would have
okay,
definitely cited out some number of things,
s-
like
s-
definitely cited out some Cavern of Souls
so I'm
for
I'm
Boseju's.
gonna do a little bit of like assuming, and I don't want to make too much of an ass out of myself. But my guess is that Mike probably won one of the games on a very fair like Ragavan Darcy plan, where Chad might not have seen the sort of like artifact combo thing going on, and then Chad probably won a really fast like explosive amulet game where also Mike didn't have a chance to do the whole like artifact combo thing. So then maybe game three, Mike took Chad for a little bit of a ride there with the whole like Emery artifact thing going on. That's my guess. I don't know that that actually happened, but
It's
I
it's
actually know
possible.
I played like Chad's a player who's been grinding like Magic and around the area for a decade and is like a very good player. So I would guess that he just maybe got caught a little bit off guard there.
Yeah, maybe not super aware of the standard. The thing that's really surprising me is that the Cavern stayed in over the Boseju's. That's kind of the thing that's like really getting me because I don't like unless you actually think your opponent's on Murktide.
Which I'm guessing that was probably the case.
But after 2 games, like it's really hard to like
Both of those games could
with
have been really
the
fast.
velocity at which Breach puts cards in
Yeah.
the yard to not see a grinding station or an underworld breach in 2 games.
I feel like you might have seen the breach, and then if you're super up on modern, you know what you're playing against, but
Yeah.
you might not have seen any artifacts because Mike was playing Ledger Shredders, Ragavans, and Darcy's, so he could have just drawn that like
Yeah.
aggressive fair part of the deck in the
Yeah.
games that he won, and then Chad could have like done a turn two kill or something.
It is possible. That is the power of the breach deck. I mean, it does it strains your ability to interact because breach is weak to so many things that your opponent kind of wants to bring in all of their sideboard cards. So I've played like a number of games on breach where my opponent's just like force of vigor, just kind of decimating what I have in play, but their main plan is so diffused that I just win the long game because they've brought in so many types of interaction that their deck is just can't do its normal thing.
And so it looks like we got Quentin in chat saying Darcy and Ragavan and Shredder isn't Murktide. Actually, the Murktide list have been going back towards Darcy lately, and a fair number of them are playing 3 or 4 Darcys, 4 Ragavans, 3 Murktides, and 2 Shredders, or something like that. Where yeah, it's the I feel like the pendulum swung to Shredder is way better than Darcy because if you're playing a lot of the mirror, like Shredder is the best. To being like, oh, now we're losing more games because we don't have a really aggressive threat, so it's kind of like correcting back in the other direction right now. Yeah, and there's no. I feel like with the Murktide, if you go and look at all the Murktide lists at place like this weekend, there's a couple that are doubles, but a lot of them have like really different threat packages. So I feel like that's still in flux. What is the best threat package? And I don't think there's a correct answer. I think it just kind of depends what you want to hedge against. But do we have time? Do we have time for one of to add another bit of spice
We do.
to our stew that we're making here
Hmm.
at Portland Paper for Modern Mondays at Guardian Games. Ian and I both spend some time in the kitchen. We're an enthusiast of culinary experiences.
Wait, is this the one?
Oh yeah, that's the one. I mean,
Okay.
they're all the same. This is one of the cards that has the same flavor text throughout the different arts.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
Text me.
For our second flavor of the week this week, because we're feeling so flavorful, we have fecundity. Life is eternal. A lifetime is ephemeral.
beautiful. Also, a really nice piece of art. I think the color, the colors chosen in this art, gorgeous.
We're all just gonna think about that for a minute, you know?
Hmm.
Sit here with some
This is not
silence.
really
Yeah.
one. I feel like you don't read this one off and then like go in hard on anything. You just let you let everybody take a moment to kind of decide
And
what
yeah,
they want to get out of it.
I mean, we'll leave you with this. We're gonna take a little bit of break. Just maybe think about that for a minute, and we'll be back for the final round here in probably 4 or 5 minutes.